Welcome to In Pursuit of Truth. This is your host, Sir Patrick Mack. Boys and girls, put on your perpetrator locator pants and set your phasers to pursuity. We got ourselves a spy. That's not a dingo. That's not a hyena. That's an imposter. NBC found an imposter. Brian Cates from the Epoch Times thinks he knows who it is. And if that doesn't make sense to you, it will in a minute. So check it out. Get your coffee. Let's go. From NBC News, possible Russian spy for CIA now living in the Washington area.
I specialize in a very specific type of security.
You're talking about dreams.
A former senior Russian official is living in the Washington area under U.S. government protection. Current and former government officials tell NBC News. NBC News is withholding the man's name and other key details at the request of U.S. officials, who say reporting the information could endanger his life. Yet the former Russian government official, who had a job with access to secrets, was living openly under his true name. So, NBC has found a guy who's been living in plain sight, but they're not going to give you his name because it could be dangerous. Sounds legit. An NBC News correspondent went to the man's house in the Washington area and rang the doorbell. 5 minutes later, two young men in an SUV came racing up the street and parked immediately adjacent to the correspondent's car. Deja vu! The men, who identified themselves only as friends of the Russian, asked the correspondent what he was doing there. They were like, "Hey, what are you doing here?" A former senior national security official said the men were likely U.S. government agents monitoring the Russians' house. The discovery of the Russians' presence in the U.S. came after a CNN report Monday asserting that the CIA exfiltrated one of its top spies from Russia after officials became concerned he was in danger of being caught. The New York Times reported later Monday that the CIA's Russian informant was instrumental to the agency's conclusion that Russian President Vladimir Putin ordered and orchestrated the campaign to interfere in the 2016 presidential election. The Times said the source was the American government's best insight into the thinking of and orders from Putin, and was key to the CIA's assessment that Putin favored Donald Trump's candidacy and personally ordered the hacking of the Democratic National Committee. The Times previously reported that the source was considered so sensitive that then CIA Director John Brennan had declined to refer to the person in the top secret presidential daily brief during the final months of the Obama administration. So, to sum it all up, this guy was so important that John Brennan felt that it was really, really essential that the POTUS not know. Brennan sent reports from the source to the president. That's what happened. And a small group of top national security aides in a separate white envelope to assure its security, the Times reported. NBC News has not confirmed that the Russian living in Virginia fed the CIA information about Russia election interference, but for reasons that NBC is withholding, he fits the profile of someone who may have had access to information about Putin's activities and who would have been recruitable by American intelligence officials. Wow, so this is a bombshell, if true. All right, well, I don't know who this top-level informant is, but I've got my suspicions. I don't have any proof. I just don't like the way he looks This is from Brian Cates. This is an article from August 19, 2018. Is Renat Ashkmetchin, the former Russian intelligence officer who was a source for the Steele dossier? Let's find out. In a bombshell report released by The Hill on August 9th, reporter John Solomon revealed that top Department of Justice official Bruce Orr took detailed notes from a meeting with Fusion GPS's Glenn Simpson, and those notes contained a very interesting section. And of course, don't forget that his wife, Nellie, was an employee Fusion GPS and spoke Russian. The report says Orr scribbled much of the collection about the Trump campaign ties to Russia comes from a former Russian intelligence officer. Not entirely clear who lives in the U.S. It later adds, a couple of the experts flagged that most of what Simpson allegedly told Orr was not from Moscow, where the alleged plot was supposed to be based, but from a reported Russian in the United States, who later seemed to disappear according to Orr's notes. Note the language used. Much of the collection about the Trump campaign ties to Russia. The quote from Orr doesn't say some of or a little bit, but instead says much of. So whoever this currently anonymous former Russian intelligence officer is, it's clear he would figure very prominently in any attempts to verify the information in the Steele dossier. Yeah, seems like this guy would be of some importance. Well, here's what Brian's saying. In fact, I already know of at least one very likely candidate, and people who followed all the twists and turns in this ongoing drama for the past year and a half are already familiar with this candidate's name, Renat Ashkmetchin. He's known for a good reason. Ashkmetchin's name first arose in the national media on July 15, 2017. I know, when he was revealed to have been a participant in a meeting at Trump Tower that took place a year earlier, on June 9, 2016. Russian lobbyist Ashkmetchin and Russian lawyer Natalia Veselnitskaya got this meeting with Trump campaign team members Donald Trump Jr., Paul Manafort, and Jared Kushner. Remember, there was a fuss out there on Paul Manafort, and this Natalia Veselnitskaya wasn't supposed to even be in the country. How did she get in? She got a special little waiver from Aunt Loretta Lynch by claiming to have proof provided to them by Russian government sources that the Hillary Clinton campaign was receiving illegal foreign donations. Once the meeting actually began, however, it quickly became clear it had been set up under false pretenses. Neither Veselnitskaya nor Ashkmetchin had any evidence of the Clinton campaign doing anything wrong. As the disappointed Trump team looked on, the two Russians instead began lobbying them against the Magnitsky Act, the law passed by Congress placing sanctions on certain Russian businessmen involved in corruption. Russian President Vladimir Putin had made it a top priority to get those sanctions lifted. All right, so whoever this mystery person is likely going to be uncovered in this upcoming IG Horowitz report. And Brian Cates, of course, is suspecting that they're likely trying to get out in front of this. And he does a great thread on Twitter here. I'm only taking you about halfway down this, but that article was accompanying this thread. But let's start you right here, and now it hits me. What the DNC media is doing right now is setting up the revelation of a Russian asset, a source that is being burned to get out ahead of Horowitz's report. The FBI may not have put any effort whatsoever into trying to learn who Steele's Russian sources were for that fake dossier. Yeah, they used it not only once, but they used it twice. They didn't really care. All they wanted to do was get access to the FISA. But I'm willing to bet Horowitz, the IG investigators on this case, Huber and Durham were very interested in where this evidence proffered in those FISA warrants actually came from. Got that? Horowitz didn't spend the last year and a half just following the money trail of who paid for the dossier. He's been tracking down Steele's sources for his Trump-Russia allegations. And that's super crucial to breaking down this whole story because, of course, we know that this is all bunk, but most people don't. They still think that this was some really legit information coming straight from Russia. So when they break down the money trail, of course, that leads to the DNC. But when they break down the actual sources, they see that it goes nowhere. And that's really the only way to show this whole thing falling apart. Remember, this fake Steele dossier stuff was used as evidence in FISA investigations. Right, so once that whole source of the evidence comes crumbling down, the whole investigation comes crumbling down. That should never have happened, and the OIG has been digging into this, trying to find out where the stuff came from. Comey, McCabe, Strzok, the record shows There was no real attempt to verify any of the Steele dossier Trump-Russia allegations. They spent all their time pumping up super MI6 spy Christopher Steele, this almost godlike paragon of the intelligence field. Why'd they do that? Because it was misdirection. They needed to sell the FISA court on Steele's awesome reputation, even though he was fired, so the court wouldn't look too closely at Steele's shadowy, anonymous Russian sources and start asking how much of this crap the FBI had managed to verify. And then Brian refers to this older article here. Here's me last year pointing out the FBI had done jack to verify any of this dossier stuff before they used it for their FISA investigations of Trump people. Stuff you and I already know. Here's me again in January pointing out that the fake news media was still trying to pretend Steele's dossier was some kind of raw intelligence report. It was, in fact, a paid political smear job by Hillary Clinton's own campaign and the DNC. And of course, that's if you're following the money. They hid the actual sources of their FISA warrant evidence to spy on the campaign, and it's clear at this point they put no real effort whatsoever into verifying any of this information or even learning who it was who was telling Steele all this stuff. If Horowitz managed to track down who Steele's sources were for his fake dossier, Trump-Russia allegations, that will send both the Spygate plotters and their media co-conspirators into a panic. Horowitz's draft report is likely making the rounds right now in high places. Tick, tick, tick. So, like he's demonstrated, we've seen where the money goes already, and that hasn't swayed anybody. But seeing where the sources go likely will, and that is going to be just the sliver, like they're saying, of this IG Horowitz report, which seems to be generating quite a bit of panic. So let's talk about that. Well, normally I would take you straight to Fox, but I want to take you by way of the dirty truth today over here on Twitter at AKA_real dirty. At Representative Ratcliffe tells Maria Bartiromo, which is an awesome name to say. Be even cooler if it was Martaria Bartiromo. People should feel good about an Obama-appointed inspector general that criminally referred the former FBI director and the deputy director of the FBI is looking at the FISA abuse. And the reason I'm taking you here is because today the dirty truth got a retweet from the Poets. Maria and John understood the dishonesty and deception from the very beginning. Well, congratulations to Dirty Truth. That must be very, very exciting. What I love about the Dirty Truth on Twitter is that they always take these little clips from different news groups and kind of give you the sort of the meat of the matter. Gets right to the point, gives you a nice little clip. So let's check it out.
Inspector General Michael Horowitz on FISA abuse against the Trump campaign. That investigation reportedly has been completed now. The DOJ expected to release it within the coming weeks. And joining me right now to preview is Republican Congressman from Texas, John Ratcliffe. He's a member of the House Judiciary, Intel, and Homeland Security Committees. He's also a former federal prosecutor. Congressman, it's good to see you this morning. Thanks so much for being here.
Always good to be with you, Maria.
We also got the IG report on Jim Comey. Your reaction to that, and what should we expect from this upcoming FISA IG report?
Well, the first IG report that you mentioned was just a sliver, how Jim Comey handled the memos that he created of his conversations with President Trump, some of which contained classified information. And of course, the Inspector General found that Jim Comey mishandled that, disclosed it without authorization. Much like Hillary Clinton, though, despite mishandling classified information, he was not charged. I know that there's been a lot of focus about why that is not the case, but to me, the most important takeaway of that first part was that the Inspector General found that Jim Comey let his personal desire for a specific outcome against Donald Trump to influence his official actions. The Inspector General, an Obama-appointed Inspector General, not a partisan Republican, found that Jim Comey had targeted Donald Trump even before their first meeting. And so, I think that's an important takeaway as we look to the second FISA abuse part of the Inspector General's report. I think people should feel good about the fact that you have an Inspector General who has criminally referred now both the Director of the FBI and the Deputy Director of the FBI, Jim Comey and Andy McCabe, and that's the person that is looking at the issues of FISA abuse.
Criminal referrals? Do tell.
Because we know that the IG has criminal going about, his life. Jim Comey, no charges so far. So what are you expecting in terms of this decision that the DOJ needs to make in terms of a potential indictment of Andrew McCabe?
Yeah, I think that's a lot of interest in that, and I think that's going to be a decision that has to be made very quickly. To remind your viewers, it was last year that the Inspector General found that Deputy Director McCabe authorized the disclosure of sensitive investigative information to a reporter, and then, more importantly, repeatedly lied about it to investigators. So, as your viewers also know, the Department of Justice has, through the special counsel, recently made a cottage industry out of charging people like General Flynn and George Papadopoulos for lying to investigators. Here you have the Inspector General stating that Andrew McCabe did that multiple times, and the magic words, did so intentionally and knowingly. I think the Department of Justice is going to have to indict Andy McCabe simply because to do otherwise would be to admit that there are separate standards for the people doing the same thing for the same conduct.
So just to be clear, you think the DOJ will indict Andrew McCabe?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you remember a couple weeks back, we were talking about James Nobody's homie Comey and all those messages that he was sharing, those confidential messages, right? Well, you're not supposed to be doing that. And of course, everybody was up in arms thinking, why isn't this guy getting indicted for that? Well, this is likely why, because once we find out what's going on with McCabe, that is more than likely going to go straight up to Comey. And it looks like there could be an indictment coming down the pipe for McCabe. A lot of people, there's a little bit of disagreement there. That's what Ratcliffe goes on to say there. But I think many people think this would be the obvious decision. And of course, if it doesn't happen, then we will know that truly we don't have any justice in this world. But Andrew McCabe has done all the things that you would imagine a guilty person to do. Go on CNN, get a little gig there. Of course, he's not getting paid anymore, so he needs to go find something else. And it looks like he's been spotted over here. He's about to headline a damn fundraiser in Pennsylvania. This is from the Washington Free Beacon. Former FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe will headline a Democratic Party fundraiser in Pennsylvania later this month. McCabe, who was fired from the FBI in 2018 due to findings by Department of Justice Inspector General Michael Horowitz that he had lied to investigators about communications with the media, has emerged as a vocal critic of the Trump administration. Yeah, you don't say. Last month, he joined CNN as a contributor, and his new book, The Threat: How the FBI Protects America in the Age of Terror and Trump. In the Age of Terror and Trump. Sounds like it's probably going to be fair and balanced. Was described by NPR as the darkest vision of the Trump presidency yet. McCabe is now also participating in Democratic fundraising events, according to the Pennsylvania Democratic Party's website. McCabe is scheduled to be the keynote speaker at a fundraising banquet for the Lancaster County Democratic Committee. Just in case you guys feel like grabbing some tickets. Well, hang on a second. Let me tell you the price. Ticket for the event, which can be purchased through Act Blue. Let me just say that again. Tickets for the events, which can be purchased through Act Blue, range from $80 to $160. And for those of you who don't know, Act Blue is super suspect and has been involved in this whole thing all along. So for $80 to $160, you can give a corrupt group a little bit of coin so that they can funnel it right over to either the DNC or right into the legal fee fund for Andrew McCabe. I'm not saying, I'm just saying. But you can also get a photograph with him, which is pretty sweet. He's scheduled to speak for 45 minutes and take questions for 15 minutes, according to the site. Oh, boy, I'd like to ask some questions. How much is that going to cost me? $80 to $160. Ugh. Guests will also be given the option to purchase signed copies of McCabe's book at the event for $32.50. McCabe told event organizers that he plans to discuss his one-on-one interactions with Donald Trump during the event. He will also cover the fallout and aftermath of former FBI Director James Comey's firing, Russian meddling in the 2016 election, and special counsel Robert Mueller's investigation. And lest we forget, McCabe's politics came under scrutiny during the 2016 election due to political contributions made by allies of Hillary Clinton to his wife, Jill McCabe, who ran for office in 2015 as a Democrat. She received nearly $500,000 in support for her failed campaign from Terry McAuliffe, who chaired Clinton's failed 2008 campaign and is one of the former President Bill Clinton's closest friends. No bias here, folks. No bias here. So it remains to be seen, but we do know that there is a lawsuit with Judicial Watch and Tom Fitton, who's fitting to get some of those messages from Andrew McCabe, as well as former FBI supervisory agent Jeff Danik. They've both put out some lawsuits in order to get some of these messages. We do know that the FBI is still in possession of them. It seems that Christopher Wray is the one sitting on those right now. But I do think that like a couple months ago with the removal of Dan Coates, or I should say weeks ago. I don't know if it was a couple months ago yet. But that would really expedite this process. But it does seem like Christopher Wray is really trying to slow walk this as much as possible. So it remains to be seen. But I do have a feeling that the indictment that we will see, if we see one first, will likely be Andrew McCabe, which will lead us to Comey, which will probably lead us to Clapper and Brennan next, if we are on track. So I want to leave you with this right here. This was from Yashar Ali, a reporter who said, here's a video from Fly Nyan, posts on its own YouTube channel promoting its so-called Pilots and Paws service, where you can bring your dog on a helicopter, strap them in a harness, and essentially dangle your feet and your dog over New York City for Instagram photos. Yeah, it sounds about as ridiculous as it looks. And there's a little good boy right there. Yeah, I don't really get this. This is a very, very strange thing. I love my dogs too. I'm not really so sure. I mean, I guess if I wanted to go up in a helicopter, I guess I'd bring my dog. I don't know that I would think to bring my dog, but there you go. It seems very, very strange, right? But what's even more strange is the person who retweeted it was Chucky Schumer. This is a promotional video from the reckless Fly Nyan to the tune of "You Make My Dreams Come True." No dog's dream is to fly 1,000 feet above the ground, doors dangerously off their helicopter, strapped into an uncomfortable harness, helicopter blades whirling loudly just above. Well, I gotta say, I agree with Chuck. I'm not so sure that that's a good thing to do for your dog. Seems like a bad place to have your dog, which is why I think this is extremely suspect. And if you've been following my channel for a while, you know that we're into dog tweets around here. And I got clowned for a long time about these dog tweets, just like I did the other day for some of those donkey stories. But I just want to say the dog thing caught on. I'm just saying. Anyway, so Chuck Schumer tweeting about these dogs. I'm not really sure what this means, but I found this company to be very curious. Fly Nyan. It made me wonder if there was a little shout out to General Flynn. Not really sure. I know a lot of people who've been following the Serial Brain stuff have been pointing out the Yo Flynn theory. Could very well be. I couldn't tell you. It does seem like some sort of shout out. I find it very interesting that this is coming just as we're trying to figure out what we're going to do about Andrew McCabe, who basically lied. And here was their statement back. Fly Nyan statement on Senator Schumer and Menendez press conference. Fly Nyan invites Schumer and Menendez to meeting to discuss helicopter safety. The facts are simple. Today we are focused on raising money to help these animals and their human partners that are on the front line of supporting recovery efforts like those of Hurricane Dorian, not trying to score political points. Okay, but so, all right, this is really strange. So they're raising money to help animals and their partners that are on the front line of supporting recovery efforts. All right, I mean, yeah, I guess so. So is Akhmetshin our mysterious reporter? Are we going to see an indictment on Andrew McCabe? Are we going to get these documents that Tom's been fitting to get? I think very likely, but that's all I got for you for now. I'm going to get back to the weatherman. As always, if you like this video, please click like, share, and subscribe. Thanks to all of you who do that already. If you're new to my channel, welcome to you. Please understand that from time to time, you're going to get unclicked and unnotified and unsubscribed. Just do me a favor, check back from time to time and re-click yourself. I would greatly appreciate it. All my alternate links are down below, my Gab, my BitChute. I would like to say, please join me on Gab. My Gab is down below. I believe it is at IPOT 1776. That's at IPOT 1776. I just went ahead and set up a new Gab. That is also my handle on Twitter at IPOT 1776. So give me a join if you're over there. I tend to be on Twitter most every single day. But all those are linked down below. Also, my email is down below. If you want to send me some information, please do not DM me on Twitter. Please send me an email. And if you'd like to send something old school, my P.O. box is down below. And if you'd like to support the channel, my Patreon is linked down below. It's all down below in the video description. All right, Patriots, I'm out of here. Until next time, stay funky.